Hey guys, it's Protendo, and unsurprisingly, the animals are really the heart of the Animal Crossing series. With over 300 villagers in the franchise, AC offers an animal for everyone, and I've already done 2 videos talking about both my favorite villagers and my least favorite villagers. But since you guys apparently like those videos a lot, like probably too much, I figured I might as well make it a trilogy of sorts by also ranking every species in the Animal Crossing series. Before we get into it, I'm obviously required to give the same disclaimer as always, that obviously there are no objectively good or bad species, and I'm just speaking from personal preference. Your ranking could literally be the exact opposite of mine, and that's completely okay. But enough wasting time, let's get to throwing shade on fictional video game animals. When I started creating this list, there was one thing I was absolutely sure of from the start. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There are no good cows in Animal Crossing. How do you create a species with only 4 animals in it, and have it be this terrible? And I can see some of you going to the comments right now to say something like, "Ooh, well, Patty's not that bad," and to that I say yes. Yes, she is. Next up, we have the mice. The mice are slightly higher than the cows because at least there are some that aren't complete garbage. I mean, there are a couple winners here. I like Chatter, and Rod's pretty great too. But aside from that, no. It's so uncommon to see a species with this many animals miss so many times. There are so many terrible mice that in my worst animals list back in April, I literally had a 3-way tie because there are so many bad ones. Just look at Limburg. Tell me your life doesn't feel threatened. Up next, we have the pigs, and now we're entering the realm of species that are less so gut-wrenchingly bad and more so just disappointing or okay. There's a few decent pigs like Hugh or Gala, but there's also some major offenders like Curly, Truffles, or Pansetti. Sorry, but the pigs get a no from me. Hot take, there are only 2 good goats, being Kid and Sherb. The others only range from decent to terrible. Anteaters in general have a design I'm not all that fond of. The long nose, or like snout thing, is a major hurdle to get across. Some succeed, like Antonio and Pongo, and others just don't at all. Sheep in Animal Crossing are either really good or really bad with no in-between at all. If you really nail it, there are some awesome designs to behold. But there are even more flops. Just look at Cashmere. Her face tells you all you need to know. Also, before people inevitably ask, Pietro is one of the good ones and Dawn is one of the bad ones. I said what I said. Okay, I'll be honest. The only reasons gorillas have made it this far up the list is because I find most of them really funny to look at. I mean, just look at Pee-wee, or Al. These aren't necessarily amazing designs, but they're just really silly and make me laugh, so they're sticking there. Although Violet and Hans are probably holding the species back a bit. After gorillas, we have kangaroos, and honestly, they're probably the most meh species in the franchise. Like, I don't particularly hate any of these guys, but I don't like any of them either. They're kind of just there. For those interested, I've actually come around on Walt since my worst animals video, and he's actually one of my favorites in the species now. But being the best kangaroo is like being the fastest tortoise. It's not actually all that impressive. Biff and Rocco are the only reasons why hippos made it this far. Moving on. Chickens are also pretty meh species for me. I mean, I like Egbert, Nox is pretty cool, Becky's alright, and that's pretty much the extent of my compliments. Next, we have bulls, who are another mixed bag. I'm actually a pretty big fan of Agnes, Rodeo, and Stu, but as I've said in the past, very few Animal Crossing villagers can pull off the facial hair style, and there are 2 swings and misses in this species alone. Coach especially is causing me to dock major points. Monkey. They're fine. I like Monty, Nana, and Shari. They're all pretty chill. Up next, we've got bears. Remember when I said that only a few animals can pull off the facial hair? Beardo is one of them. There was so much Beardo slander in the previous 2 videos' comment sections, and I need to let you all know that I don't stand for it. His back must be hurt from carrying his entire species. This man is nothing less than a legend, and you should all give him the respect he deserves. I've always thought the horses in Animal Crossing looked a little strange. Like, model-wise, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with how tall they are. But there are definitely some good designs there. Roscoe and Julian are standouts, but the new Renee isn't bad either. Bud is a crowning achievement in character design, and the Animal Crossing team should be given an award for him. The other lions are pretty decent too, I guess. I'll be honest, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the koalas. There are people who don't like the design of the species whatsoever, which I can totally get from a more objective sense, but characters like Eugene, Lyman, and especially Alice have weaseled their ways into my heart. After koalas, we've got alligators, who are pretty solid. There are a couple misses here and there, sure, but it's pretty consistent at the end of the day. Also, they have a literal dragon. How could you not love that? I think that hamsters have one of the cutest looking models in the entirety of Animal Crossing, but not all the designs keep up with that, unfortunately. But there's a lot to love here, with villagers like Clay making the species feel more worthwhile. From a distance, you might be turned away from the cubs by seeing animals like Vladimir and Barreled, but the species has even more pleasant villagers to offer. Bluebear, Maple, and of course Stitches are just a few of the great cubs available. Ostriches are up next, and in my opinion, they're pretty basic. Sprocket is really the only standout design in this species. But despite being basic, almost every animal has a really clean and nice looking design. I honestly love the rhinos. As long as you ignore the they're a pretty consistently good species. Hornsby and Meringue are the clear highlights. Next we have birds, and honestly, I think this is a really wholesome species. That probably isn't the right use of the word, but you guys get what I mean. Most of them are just really nice and give off a super cozy Animal Crossing vibe. It's not perfect, mind you, but the imperfections kinda add to the overall Animal Crossing charm, especially since they're so infrequent and don't overpower the good designs. Just letting you guys know, it physically pained me to put ducks this low. Molly is my favorite animal in the series, and Bill, Ketchup, Mael, and Scoot are all top notch. But when you've got 17 whole villagers in a species, you're bound to have some bad ones, and the ducks certainly do. Drake, Freckles, Gloria, they all prevented me from putting the duck species in the top 10 like I wanted to. Coming up next, we've got tigers. Similarly to ostriches, they really aren't any bad animals in the species. Some are definitely just okay, maybe even boring, but at the end of the day, it's a very good group. It's so rare to see a group this large be so consistent, but the rabbits absolutely succeed. While there aren't an incredible amount of animals I find amazing in this species, it hardly has any straight up bad animals. Definitely a couple I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's still crazy to see a species of 20 villagers do so well in terms of consistency. Okay, now we've made it into the top 10, and I'm starting off with the octopi. This is the rare species in the series, including only 3 members, and each one has an excellent design that all capture completely different vibes. The only thing holding them back is the sheer lack of numbers their species contains. If they had, say, double the villagers and each one was as well designed as the 3 we have now, octopi would definitely be in my top 3. At number 9, we've got squirrels. Squirrels are high in numbers, and most of them are really great. They're no rabbits, and definitely have a few misses, but the good heavily outweighs the bad. People like to hype up Marshall, but my boy Static is the true highlight here. Look how smug he is. Look at how cool his design is. Eagles are up next, which, surprise surprise, also don't have a single bad design amongst them. This is a species where simplicity really shines in my opinion, considering the fact that Amelia and Apollo are 2 of the best. But at the end of the day, you just can't beat Sterling. This is definitely my favorite winged series though. At number 7, we have the cats, and I can practically hear the outrage from not putting them in the top 3, but at least let me explain myself before I get pitchforked. Cats are definitely the most iconic species in the entire series, featuring 23 villagers, most of which are highly beloved. But while there's a huge amount of amazing cats like Bob, Punchy, Mo, Kiki, and others, there are also ones like Monique, or Tabby, and that earns them this spot. Pretty high, but not super high. Next, we've got the elephants, who I just love. Each one has a charming design, and they all look amazing while being distinct and vastly different from one another. Their large stature also adds a whole level of charm on its own, as most of them are these sort of graceful giants. Well, Axel's not all that graceful, but you get what I mean. Following elephants, we've got the deer at number 5. The deer were a new species added in New Leaf, and quickly became one of my all-time favorites. They all look fantastic with different styles and colors, and are just super friendly looking. I love how the males have different horns than one another, really giving each one a whole other level of distinction. And once again, not a poor design in sight. At number 4, we've got the penguins, who have my overall favorite model design in the series. I mean, just look at these guys. They're so round and just full of pure joy all through their shape. This is like the unbeatable animal shape right here. In terms of specific designs though, there's even more to gush about. Iggly is my personal favorite, but there are also so many other great ones. Aurora, Cube, Boomer, Rolled. Not each one's a winner, but the ones that do win by a landslide. Okay, here we go, top 3. Let's talk about the dogs. Yup, I did rank the dogs above the cats, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just like another species in the top 3, dogs aren't perfect. Far from it. But it's one of those situations where the good outweighs the bad so much that it just has to be rewarded. There are so many great dogs. Bones, Bee, Biscuit, Butch, and those are literally just the bee names. Overall, they're an incredibly lovable and iconic species. They'd probably be even higher if it wasn't for Marcel. Next, at number 2, we've got wolves. We've covered species that don't have any bad animals before in this video, but the wolves take it a step further by having every animal be amazing. I love every single villager in this species, and there really isn't a single miss, which isn't even the case for the number 1 spot. The wolves are just super charming and honestly kinda just look awesome. Which definitely isn't the word I'd use for most of these species, but the wolves genuinely look cool. But if these guys are so perfect, what could possibly beat them? Well, we've now made it to our number 1 spot, which features none other than the frogs. It's honestly pretty funny that they made it to the top of this list, considering the fact that they have a decent amount of misses. Gigi, Jombette, Wart Jr., etc. But the reason why the frogs are this high up is because the lows of their species are inconsequential in comparison to the highs. Jeremiah, Lily, Cousteau, Frobert, Henry, Rattle, Ribbot. There's so many amazing frogs that I never even doubted them being at the top. Well, okay, I sort of considered putting the dogs up here instead, but then I remembered Marcel. But anyways guys, that's what I did for this video. What do y'all think? Is my list somewhat accurate to your own, or do you disagree completely? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all later. Protendo, out.